All right, one of us in this interview has done a whole lot in basketball. The other one, not so much. And I'm pretty sure you can guess who is who. That man next to me, Luke Jackson, Oregon basketball standout, former NBA first-round draft pick. He played with LeBron James. I'm Bryan Fenley. Luke, so glad to have you here. You are a busy man. You have almost assembled a full basketball team as far as kids. You've got 3 so far. What is dad life like for you?
Well, first of all, I think me playing with LeBron is generous because I was hurt quite a bit.
Sure.
But it's pretty incredible being a dad, being a family man and a husband. I think a lot of guys, when they get done playing, are kind of searching for what's next. And being a great dad and a husband, family guy, I think sports can really set you up for that if you understand that that was something that was valuable. There's a lot you can take away, but I'm just enjoying life. And I've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, 2 boys, and then a daughter, Ruthie, who's 2. So
Wow. You've got 3 so far, and we have actually met a long time ago. This was, oh my gosh, this was in Santa Barbara. This was early 2000s. You were, I believe, still at Oregon. I was this pimple-faced dingleberry walking around at Michael Jordan's basketball camp, prepubescent kid, and I still have one of those Carolina blue camp T-shirts with your signature on it in the drawer of my room. And you were a
yes.
camp counselor. What led you to being a camp counselor at Michael Jordan's summer basketball camp?
Well, I remember coming in after the season, kind of lining out what my workout schedule was going to be, kind of plans to get better. And Coach Kent at Oregon said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity to go to be a counselor at Jordan's camp. And, by the way, you get to play against him in the evenings." And so I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that. That sounds incredible. It was one of the most special moments as a basketball player to be able to play against the greatest. I remember for Christmas, I think when I was a 4th grader, I got a Bulls sweatsuit. Wow. And I think I wore that thing until there was holes in it. And so, fast forward to when I'm 20, and now I get to guard Jordan every night for a couple weeks and be a part of his camp. It was a special opportunity.
Who else was on that floor? Because there was Jordan, there was you, there were other prominent high school, college basketball players taking part in that scrimmage.
Yeah, LeBron came. Maybe, I don't know if it was the year you were there. Or
he
the year
was
after.
there. I think he was like 17 or something at the time.
Yeah, LeBron was there. Kobe showed up one year. Carmelo was there as a senior coming out of Syracuse.
Wow.
Kirk Heinrich, Nick Collison, I think Ben Gordon was there, and Josh Childress was there. It was a lot of, future NBA guys, kind of the best college players in the country. And, Jordan kind of obviously on the end of his career wanted a quality pickup game after the camp to kind of prepare him for his last hurrah.
Do you remember Jordan talking a lot out there on the court? Was he doing some trash talking? Do you recall?
What surprised me about Jordan and that camp was, number one, he saw everything.
Wow.
He really had a high level of proprioception, which is just kind of a sense of where he was at, everything that was going on around him. And he was incredibly humble, which surprised me. I mean, obviously everyone saw The Last Dance, but he was there for the kids. He was there to give back. And I was actually surprised. I was thinking that he was going to be quite a bit more arrogant.
Yeah.
And I remember he had a high level of humility, and I think that served him well over the years.
It certainly did. And you brought up the names Heinrich and Collison. You had some battles with those guys in college. And when you were not taking part in the scrimmages and you were still a camp counselor, what were parts of your responsibilities as a camp counselor that you had to do that you maybe didn't think you had to sign up for? I mean, you had to make sure kids were in their rooms at a certain time and all this stuff. Like, what was surprising about the overall experience of being at that Michael Jordan basketball camp?
Well, I think a lot of the camp was just like any other basketball camp. You're going to get stations, you're going to get drills. You're obviously learning from some of the best players and coaches in the country. Everyone wanted to be a part of anything that Michael Jordan was doing. But the opportunity is so enticing for kids to be able to say, hey, I was around Jordan. I saw Jordan. I got to talk to him. I was a part of that. I remember we had, indoor stations. We had some outdoor stations of skill work and, making sure that there's always going to be a couple kids that got their feelings hurt. Someone didn't drink enough water. Someone
Yeah.
scraped their knee. And all that's, I think it's important for players to become a coach at some level to understand that it's a lot of times it's just a thankless job. You're just helping people. You're helping people along their way. But that was a special camp. I don't know how it was for you as a kid, but it must have been pretty incredible.
As someone who idolized players like yourself and having them all in one spot. I mean, I was a college basketball junkie, Luke. I'd watch all your games with you and Fred and Ridnour and just enthralled. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're around me. These guys are all around me. This was like a kid in a candy store, basically, just how excited I was to have you around and watch you teach and coach and be a part of this. And like you said, LeBron was at the camp. Now, LeBron, he came into the league a year before you were drafted. And the following year, the Cavs drafted you. How did LeBron welcome you to the team when you became officially a Cav?
LeBron was a great teammate. And when I came in, I remember I got in there early. He was in there getting shots up, working out. And I had met him at that camp before a little bit. And I just remember starting to work out with him and just, talking with him a little bit about his first year. And he was very welcoming. Before I got hurt, I think I really would have complimented LeBron
Absolutely.
very well. My first day of summer league, I ended up herniating a couple of discs in my back, and I was never really the same player. And so I got overlooked. Eventually, I was just one of the guys. But LeBron was a great teammate. He worked hard. He's obviously maybe one of the most gifted athletes of all time. But as a teammate, our lockers were right next to each other. We got along really well. And he's just a hardworking guy. I mean, people see him on the floor and they think, oh, that's just all this natural ability. And that's true. The guy's an incredible athlete, but he's spent so many hours in the gym to polish his game, to be so versatile. It's just been fun over the years watching how tough he's been for so long. His longevity is incredible.
Do you remember a conversation you had with him, perhaps on the team bus or in the hotel? Might have been about basketball, might have been something else about life that resonates with you, just a one-on-one interaction away from the limelight, the spotlight, the thousands of fans watching you guys play?
I remember a lot of those conversations. I think for him and for me, just sitting back and watching at the time, and I know his core group of guys that he kind of grew up with, his boys,
Mm-hmm.
they were still dreaming. about, like, he hadn't signed a max deal yet. He was still on that guaranteed 4-year deal. I remember one specific story that stands out about him being, I think he was 18. He flew out to Nike and they had this huge presentation for him. And he said Phil Knight handed him a check for $10 million.
Oh my gosh.
And, getting to know him a little bit better and seeing how he came up with a single mom for a parent, and bounced around on different couches and just loving basketball, thinking that's going to be a release from real life,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing how hard he worked to be where he's at. And then him sharing that story about, like, I made it, I was in Phil Knight's office, the owner and creator of Nike, and this guy just handed me $10 million at 18. To see where he's ended up is pretty incredible. And to see how he's taken some of his friends with him along the way, it has been pretty remarkable.
LeBron seems to be so loyal to those who supported him before he became big time, when he was just starting to find his footing. Luke Jackson is with us, former Oregon Duck basketball standout, first-round draft pick in the NBA. I'm Bryan Fenley. I've gotten to know Jason Capono and had him on this little podcast, and I asked him what it was like playing with LeBron. He said it was like traveling with the Beatles. Do you have a metaphor that you would characterize that sort of dynamic when having yourself on the team with LeBron, like the LeBron James effect?
Yeah, I mean, as far as ticket sales, when you're playing with LeBron, every game that you go to is going to be sold out.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people waiting in Minnesota in January at 2:30 in the morning, knowing that that bus might just roll up to the hotel at any minute, even though it's 10 below zero.
Wow.
And for a guy to have that much attention and to have that much hype coming in even before he played a minute, it's just impressive that he's not only lived up to all of that hype,
Mm-hmm.
but he's exceeded those expectations. And like I said before, the longevity of his career is so impressive. But people were always trying to get up to the hallway, to the room,
Yeah.
waiting around, coming up at dinner. And, he was a gracious guy. And LeBron is a very, very smart individual. His IQ is off the charts. A lot of people don't know that he does everything except for basketball left-handed.
Really?
And yeah, he writes left-handed. He'll throw left-handed sometimes. And I think the fact that maybe he's ambidextrous, it doesn't get brought up that much.
That's breaking news to me. I did not know that one bit. That's fascinating.
And similar, like playing with Shaq. I played with Shaq in Miami.
Yeah.
Shaq was playing football in like 7th or 8th grade, and he broke his wrist really bad, right? And it was his right wrist, and his mobility with that wrist was so limited. And I think that was one of the reasons why he was such a poor free throw shooter.
Interesting.
Is that he couldn't really snap his wrist. He just kind of had to shot put it. And I remember looking at his mobility, and they never brought that up.
Wow.
He always kind of joked around about it, but he said, "Hey, Luke, this is the reason why I couldn't really shoot free throws is I've only got like 20% range of motion."
Wow.
And it was from breaking his arm in football.
One of the theories I had was like his hand is so big that it's like trying to shoot a tennis ball. But your story and anecdote right there is makes so much more sense. And like you said, nobody talks about that.
Well, I'm playing with Shaq, and I think it's his 16th year in Miami. And he goes about 3/4 of the way through practice, and all of a sudden he's shooting free throws on the sideline and resting while we're finishing the practice. And so I walk over there and I start talking to him. He's like, "Hey, young fella, look, I've had every coach imaginable try to help me. Like, let's not even talk about this. I'm not talking about it. And he's like, look at how far I can flex my wrist. And he said, that's from breaking my arm when I was, playing like Pop Warner in middle school.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're with the Heat. You were obviously on the Cavs, on the Clippers as well, and other stints in the league. And you brought up the unfortunate injury you had, which, if you think about it, if that did not happen, you brought up the longevity of LeBron James. If that injury did not happen, Luke, where do you think the trajectory of your career would have ended up?
I mean, I was an athlete. I was a good athlete. I was like I was like 2 inches taller than Ginobili, and I thought I was more athletic and I could shoot it like him. The NBA was not harder than college. There's a lot of space, a lot of open jump shots. I wasn't getting double teamed anymore like I was in college. And I thought I could have had like a Ginobili type career. I went from almost being able to dunk from the free throw line to barely being able to tie my shoes.
I was going to
And,
ask you how debilitating that injury was. Yeah.
I'm going in for like my 10th surgery in a couple weeks. And,
Oh,
I'm still injured to this day, and they have to go in and clean up L1 through L5. And, it really has affected the rest of my life. I want to be able to have mobility for my kids and have enough, range of motion to be able to do the things I want to do with them, but I can't golf. It was a really major surgery, and coming in thinking you're going to be LeBron's sidekick and kind of having the world by the tail. It was like my first or second week, I was sitting down with an attorney, and they were saying I had insurance on my body.
mm-hmm.
And they said, you can probably collect around, $10 million, but you're never going to be able to play basketball again. So it was a career-ending injury that I suffered there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm happy that I was able to make it to the league, but I was probably better as a freshman in high school than I was playing in the NBA.
Wow, that is a powerful statement.
Yeah, it was. I probably should have stopped playing. And, I thought I'd never been injured before. And so I thought, maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I can come back and play. And to make it that far and go through everything that I'd gone through, of course, I'm resilient. I'm young. I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to be fine. And it never really worked out that way. And I just kind of tried to grind and hold on as long as I could. But I scored a game high 30 points in Toronto. And I remember just kind of going back and crying after the game because I did that and I couldn't even feel my right leg. I had such bad nerve damage, I couldn't even feel my foot. And I dropped 30, and I was just kind of thinking like, I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, I just wonder what it would have been like to be, not have so much pain, not have any range of motion. And obviously I lost my athleticism. So
It shows that you did it for the love of the sport. I mean, you persevered and tried your hardest to maneuver around these humongous obstacles as it relates to injuries you had. Like you said, you could have stopped playing. You sacrificed your body even more for the thrill and for the love. You had put so much work into basketball that to have it end prematurely was not anything that you wanted to see happen. You survived. You went all 4 years at Oregon, and a guy that is a lottery pick like yourself, a 4-year player, a lottery pick, you don't see that very often these days. And the year before, your teammate in Luke Ridnour went to the draft, selected by the Sonics in the first round. You two in Oregon, how big of gym rats were you guys?
Well, like you see these guys right now in the NBA, they're like shotgunning beers and having a good time.
JJ.
And, a lot of people, they're going to college thinking that they're going to party, and there's plenty of that around. But I can honestly say, I don't think Luke Ridnour, and he may have never had a drink to this day. We didn't drink at all. We didn't party at all. If you're going to be dating either one of us, you better be able to rebound. And we spent, and that's just the difference between, guys thinking that they're working hard and guys spending like 7, 8, 9 hours a day in the gym. And that's the difference between having a mediocre career and going 15-15 every season and winning 30 games and going to the Sweet 16 every year. And that's one of the reasons Mark Few, who's actually from Cresswell, my hometown, is so successful, is he gets these guys every single year and convinces them to be gym rats. Now, whether or not they don't have a beer through their college career, I don't know about that, but my best memories of college are late night, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 with the radio on in the arena. And Matt Court, the old arena that we used to play at, is right across the street from a cemetery, right on campus.
Wow.
Really old cemetery. And, you used to be in there with your headphones on, shooting hoops. People sneak up behind you and scare you. And we just had a lot of great memories hooping in the summer. And we used to play before class, during class, after. I mean, we just lived in the gym, and we just had a great group of guys. And anyone can really do that loves basketball. But I see these college guys with tons of talent every single year, but they're really not spending the time that it takes to become a master of basketball. And they're great athletes, or they're talented here and there, but they don't really put the time in. You have to live in the gym. We walked around campus with a ball in our hands, and we lived it, and it paid off for us.
Yeah, I would argue that kids these days have so many more distractions, which I think takes away from that time in the gym. I thought I remember hearing this story or a tale that Luke Ridnour used to sleep with his basketball or something like that, where he was so attached to the basketball, like you said, carrying it around, walking through campus. What was a quirk of his that indicated to you, man, this guy loves the game?
I think the first time I met him coming off the plane, he had a ball in his hand. And he really idolized Pistol Pete and kind of the legend of just riding a bike with the ball, going to the movie theater with the ball.
Yeah.
And, his dad was his high school basketball coach and kind of groomed him to be that type of person. His dad was a great basketball player as well. And, if you saw Luke Ridnour walking through the mall, he's like 6'1", maybe, like 170. He looks like he might work at Starbucks. And this guy maybe had the best handle and took his potential to the ultimate, to the max, to the highest level. And there's so many NBA players that haven't even scratched the surface of what they can become. And same thing with college players. But I can definitely say for 100% that Ridnour got every ounce. He juiced everything he had out of his body. I mean, it was incredible.
That year, 2001-2002 season, storybook run for you guys to the Elite Eight, ranked as high as number 6 in the country. Was that a team that could have won it all?
Yeah. We had some injuries coming in to that game. I had a sprained ankle. I think Fred Jones had some back spasms. And I think one of our big guys had like a sprained wrist. I think it was probably in between Maryland, who won it all that year, who had Juan Dixon, Steve Blake, couple other like really good.
like Baxter? Was it Lonnie Baxter?
Baxter was
Yeah.
on that, Lonnie Baxter, and like 3 or 4 other guys that played in the
Mhm.
NBA, and then Kansas, who we lost to. But we were beat up, and I think that we were every bit of the team that won it, and it was kind of any given night, and it would have been nice to go into that Elite Eight game healthy. But playing against Kirk Heinrich, Drew Gooden, Nick Collison, I think they had like 4 or 5 guys on that team that ended up making it to the NBA. That's what it's all about. Just giving yourself a chance to get there. Not only do you have to be good, you have to be a little bit lucky. You have to avoid injury. And there's nothing like March Madness. One of the most depressing things that's ever happened is no March Madness this year.
Yeah.
And Payton Pritchard at Oregon having this storied career, it's just, and the same thing with Sabrina Ionescu at Oregon. Number 1 team, probably going to win a national championship. A lot of magic, a lot of chemistry happening. Years of their life dedicated to trying to bring that home.
Yeah.
And just not having a chance to win it. And see it as a fan now. I've been to Final Fours. It's just a special thing.
Pritchard, the undisputed anchor of that team, and you could argue, you would know much better than I, Luke, arguably the best floor general in college during his career. And having followed his career and seen what he did, why was he so good? Why was he so special? What was it about his pizzazz, his spunk on the court that elevated Oregon to national prominence?
It meant more to him. He's just like Luke and myself. Instead of sleeping in before weights at 8 a.m., which some guys struggle to get up, he's already up at 6:30. He's already got a full workout in. He's already made 300 threes. And, he's probably got a full sweat in going into weights. And where some guys, maybe they get 2 or 3 workouts in and they're playing a little bit and they think they're giving their best. Payton Pritchard gave everything that he had. And I used to let him into the gym in my old middle school in Crestwell all the time and get a workout in late at night. Hey, Luke, can you get me in the gym? And that's the difference between the guys that make it to the NBA, that are on the cusp with their athleticism, with their ability, is they are going to elevate their game and be way more polished than someone who's getting drafted on their potential or their athleticism or their size. There's only so many players that are coming in that are ready to go out and play. And if you would ask me if Payton Pritchard was an NBA player after his sophomore year, I would have said there's no way. And after this last year, I would say, he's a potential starter in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be a difference maker, and he did that. He made himself into that type of player. I know there's a book out there that's something about 10,000 hours to master anything.
Sure.
And people think that they've spent that much time playing basketball at the college level and in the pros, but a lot of guys play because they're good at it and they don't really love the game. Like, you don't see very many 6'10", 6'11" guys playing in City League when they get done, because they just grew up and they were playing because they were good at it.
Yeah.
And Payton won 4 state championships in high school. He helped lead the team at Oregon to the Final Four. And he just was an ultimate gym rat. And that's the recipe for success for these young guys coming up, is just spending that much time in the gym.
It must be fun, because I would, getting inside of your mind, think that you could relive a little bit of your own experiences through him, knowing that there's some similarities in your work ethic and that dedication to your craft. And you brought up the 10,000 hours thing. it's one thing to go out and play, but I think in scrimmage and, playground ball, but like it's the hours you put in where you're really focused. Like you can have a really good practice where you're not, messing around and joking around. And I think that doesn't contribute to being the refined player you are unless you get in. You can practice well. I think that's the biggest difference. Why do you think Dana Altman has done so well? He's fit in well and he has this program rolling.
He's probably the best offensive coach in college basketball.
Wow.
His system of spacing is kind of a spinoff of what Phil Jackson had with the triangle. And it's manipulated a little bit into looking like it's free flowing, but it's just really about spacing and movement and being unselfish. I was a head coach at a small university in Oregon for 5 years, and I was always kind of looking for what was next, schemes, good plays, and I started running some of his stuff.
Wow.
And as a player, I wish I could have played that style. He has the highest percentage of wins when he's up or down 3 in the last 2 minutes, I think in the last 20 years. He's just a great coach, but it's because of his offensive sets that kind of liberates players to play within a controlled system and play unselfishly. And Dana Altman is probably in the top 2 or 3 coaches in the country, if you ask me. And there's great recruiters. There's incredible recruiters. You got guys like Calipari. You got programs like Duke and obviously Krzyzewski's right at the very top. And then you've got really intense guys like Izzo, who are going to scare you to play hard. But I think Dana Altman is one of the best offensive minds that I've seen.
I think you're right. I also think that if you were to go a couple other minds that might be in that territory, Mark Few would have to be up there as well. And I look at, your style, your flair, your charisma on the court when you were with Oregon, and even your haircut, and I'm like, he's got a little Adam Morrison in him. Did you ever have a chance, your careers? I know that you were a little bit older than him, if I'm not mistaken, but have your lives intersected at any point through the game of basketball?
I've talked to Adam a few times. Oregon and Gonzaga kind of have it's a lot of Northwest guys that they're fighting over.
Sure.
And it should be the biggest rivalry in the Northwest because they're the 2 best basketball programs. Mm-hmm. And I definitely see what you're saying. We both had long hair and we were both ultimate competitors and kind of played with a reckless abandon. Mark Few was offered the job at Oregon and turned it down. And he's a U of O alum.
Wow.
And he's from Crestwell, which is where I'm from. And I've known him my whole life. And I always kind of wondered what it would have been like. They recruited Ridnour, obviously, from Washington, and me pretty hard. And, I know a lot of people have always given him a hard time, man. You can't even get a recruit out of your hometown. But it did work out. I'm glad that I went to Oregon. But that's a game that I would love to see is Oregon, Gonzaga. You play 1 year in Portland, next one's in Seattle.
I love it.
And, I kind of challenge Altman and Mark Few to make that happen because there's a rivalry that's there. And they don't even play each other.
They don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kelly Graves, women's coach at Oregon, he used to coach at Gonzaga.
Yeah. Yeah. Kelly Graves has done an incredible job. Unbelievable guy. And, they would have definitely won. I think that they were definitely a favorite to win the national championship. And that's with probably arguably the second best player that wasn't even playing on the bench. They had a transfer that was like 6'7", 6'8", drop, step, dunk, shoot threes.
Jeez.
And he's just an incredible coach and even better person.
Luke, how do you to this day fulfill your appetite for basketball? What are you wanting to do now in your future to keep the game close? And I would have to think you've got some young kids starting to get them involved in the game as well, maybe.
I gave basketball everything that I had. You know, I beat my body up to the point where the wheels were starting to fall off. They haven't quite fallen off yet, but I coached my kids. I coached first grade and third grade, and I was a college basketball coach for 5 years. Took a program that was kind of not even on the map and won the league a couple years in a row. And I probably could have kept on climbing that ladder. And I may get back into college coaching someday, but for me, there's so much attention when you're a great athlete, and especially, you know, high school and college, and you get the notoriety. A lot of former professionals struggle when they get done because it's always been about them. It's always been, the
Great point.
attention's been on them, and they don't know what to do. And for me, I've just tried to focus on giving all of that stuff, everything that I've learned, all the relationships that I've had. So many people have poured their lives into me so I could become the person and the athlete that I was. I want to be able to give that back to my family and to my kids. And I think that that's one of the things that so many guys struggle with is they try to keep it going like it's about them. And when you get done playing, if you're married and you're a professional basketball player, that means you're sitting there waiting for your husband to come home while you're
Mhm.
watching the kids. It's about being a great dad, coaching your kids, and giving back to all the people and all the institutions like your university, your high school, that helped you become who you are.
Wow.
And so that's honestly, if I could bottle that and give that to every single alum that's searching for something, that's trying to make it still about them, it's really about how you can give back and get that next guy the same opportunity and be a great dad. That's what's really fulfilling.
What a profound message. Luke, that was super powerful. And I hope that players out there can see that when they do step away from their vocation, that they have given hours and hours of time for many, many years, that they can step away and be okay with that and realize that, yes, the world at a certain point in their careers would revolve around them more or less being a professional athlete and having all this attention, but then channeling that afterwards into realizing everybody that helped you prop you up to get to where you are. That says so much about your character, Luke, in doing that. And your kids got a great dad, man. How lucky they are in the NBA draft of dads. Luke Jackson, first overall pick. And
Hey,
yeah, so glad to have you on. This was a lot of fun. And gosh, this is a great time, Luke. I'm so appreciative of your time.
hey, thank you for having me on. It was nice chatting with you, and best of luck with your career as well.